Hello everyone. We are back once more with computer application for ICC 2021. Okay. If you remember in the earlier episodes, we were doing switch case. Okay. So we continue with that today. Today we will be dealing with nested switch case. Now before we move on to nested switch case, what exactly does nested mean? Okay. Now when we speak of nested, it means to have one object and within that object we place another object. One object placed within another object. So we have got one object here, we have placed within this outer object. So this becomes nested. Now it can be different type of objects. This is one type, this is another type. Or we may have an object of the similar type. This object is placed within this object and they are of the same type. For example, for this one, say I have got a switch case, within that I have got a loop, or within a loop I have got a switch case. Then also it is nested. Or in this one, say I have got a switch, within that I have got another switch, or I have got a for loop, within that I have got one more for loop. So same type or different type. So when you place one object within another object, then it is known as nested. Okay. So we move on to nested switch case. So here we are dealing with nested switch case. So that is placing one switch case statement within another switch case statement. One switch case statement within another switch case statement. So this is called nested switch case. Fine. So generally we have this format. We write switch, then the variable, the condition which we use there, and then case 1, case 2, case 3 and so on, a number of case. Each case has its own option. Based on the value of this V1, one of the case will take place, right? Now when we talk about switch case, what we do is, inside this case is for this switch. So when we come to this option, suppose V1's value is 1, control comes to case 1. Now in case 1, we have the second switch V2. Okay, this switch case, switch V2, case 21, case 22, this switch case statement is now placed within the case 1, placed within case 1 of this outer switch. That means this switch case is nested within this switch case. Now we have done this for one case, it may be for the other case also. Okay, like for case 2 also we have got a nested switch case. And it can go on. We can have for a number of other options also. For each option we may have a different nested switch case. In fact, even within this switch case, for this case we can have one more switch case, one more nested. Okay, these are called different levels of nesting. Like this outer one is a particular level, this one and this one will be another level. If we have one more switch case within this, that will be a different level. Okay. So when we speak about this outer one is generally level 0. Not only in case of switch case, any nesting, the outer one is called the level 0. Okay. Next comes level 1. Now if you see, both this one and this one are level 1 nesting. If we place something here within this case 21 or case 22, then it will be a different level, then it will become level 2. But here this one and this one are of the same level. Okay. In Java, there is no limit to the number of levels that you can go. It will all depend on your programming logic. Okay. But generally you will not get a question where you need to go deep into the levels. You will get 0 level and level 1. Okay, clear? Fine. Now we will see a program based on this switch case, nested switch case. Okay, fine. So let's read this program, this question. A mobile recharge shop offers to recharge Airtel, Jio, Vodafone SIM, and the different plans. Airtel plans are the 3 values, Jio plan, and Vodafone plan. Okay, so we write a menu-driven program to help a customer first choose the network and then choose the valid plan. This is very important. First choose the network. And then choose the valid plan. So first the customer has to choose from here, Airtel, Jio or Vodafone. And then based on the choice of the network, one of these plans the customer has to choose. So customer needs to first choose between the networks and then between the plans of that particular network, either 349, 398 or 558 for Airtel, or 149, 249 or 349 for Jio, or 199, 249 or 399 for Vodafone. Okay, so this program deals with nested switch case. So we have got 2 sets of options. One for the network. Remember, we need to choose, the customer need to choose either Airtel, Jio or Vodafone, and then the customer need to choose the plan. Each network has got a different set of plan, so has to choose one of the plan from there, right? So since we will be taking 2 choice, so we will need 2 different variables. One variable will have the choice for the network, one variable will have the choice for the plan. So for input, network choice, plan choice. The variable data type will be char for the network choice, char or char. For plan, it will be int, integer type, number, numeric. We will use the variable name NW for network, P for plan. Fine. So we need 2 variables. Now let's go to the program. Okay, the first part of the program. Remember, this will be a bit lengthy program because we are doing nested switch case. There are 3 choices for the network and 3 choices each for each network, the plans. Okay. So here also we are using util class, the scanner class with util package, sorry, not util class, util package. So we declare the object SC for the scanner object. We declare the 2 variable NW and P. We have initialized them. Then comes the menu. So system.out.print /n/t, this portion that we have written /n/t, these are escape sequence character. These are used just to bring about the design that you see on the screen. It doesn't affect the program as such. Whether you write this or you don't write this, doesn't matter. Okay. In case you don't write /n, please write here println. Print and println are 2 different print function. Print, when we use system.out.print, only print. Then after displaying a certain remark on the screen, the print control remains in the same line or same row, so that the next print statement will continue printing in the same row. In case you use println, here I am not using println, but many of you might be using println. If you use println, then what happens is it will print in the first row, and after printing, the control will go to the next row. The print control will go to the next row or next line after printing the first line. Print, the control remains in the same line. Println, after printing, the control goes to the next line. Okay. Then with print or println, you can use /n. /n is an escape sequence character to give a new line. The moment /n is encountered, the control will go to the next line. While printing, the moment /n is encountered, the control will go to the next line. Suppose I have given network, between this net and work, after T I give /n. Then when I am printing, net will come in one line, then because of /n, work will go to the next line. So /n is more flexible when you use with print or println statement. We'll take this up in more details in a in a different episode. Okay. For the time being, we are just showing the menu, network, Airtel, Jio, Vodafone. And then we'll ask the user to enter the choice. Remember, first choice is network. So we are asking, enter the first letter of your chosen network. The networks are Airtel, Jio, and Vodafone. So we are asking for the first alphabet, first letter of the network. So if the user wants Airtel, he or she will press A. Similarly for Vodafone, V. For Jio, it will be J. Whatever is the value that will be given by the user, we are reading it and storing it in the variable NW. AC.next.char@0 will read the character from the keyboard and store it in NW. Fine. So let's proceed to the next part of the program. NW is being used with switch. So based on the value of this NW, we'll have a number of cases for the network. Case A will be for Airtel, case J will be for Jio, and case V will be for Vodafone. So based on the value that will stored here, based on the alphabet or the character that is stored in NW, one of the case will be valid. Okay. So first case A or capital A or small a. Remember, the user may use capital A, user may give small a. Whatever may be used, capital or small, the user is referring to Airtel. So we use case capital A, case small a, and then comes the menu for the plan. Once the user has chosen Airtel, your program should display the plans, the valid plans for Airtel. So that portion we are printing it out here. So welcome to Airtel Recharge, and then comes the 3 different plan. According to the question, the 3 different plans are being shown: 349, 398, 558. Here we are asking the user to directly enter the value. The user can enter 349, 398, 558, anything. Instead of writing 1, 2, or 3, the user can directly enter the integer value, because the amount is an integer value. 349 is an integer value, and in switch case we can use integer value for the variable, not this variable, the next variable that we'll have, the P. It can be int type, integer type, or chart type. So here we are asking the user to enter the value itself, the amount, the plan amount, that is taken as int. Okay, so that will be stored in P. So now the user has chosen A, and from A the user needs to choose a particular plan, and based on the plan, the next part of the switch case will take place. That is, the nested switch case will now take place. So now under case A of the outer switch, we have got the switch P with the 3 different plan and the default option. This will happen only when the user has chosen a particular network, the Airtel network, and then has given a particular plan value. The plan value is stored in P. And if you see, the case values represent the plan values. Like case 349 represent the plan value 349. Case 398 represent the plan value 398. And case 558 represent the plan value 558, rupees 558. Okay. So whatever is the value that the user chooses, that will be stored in P, and from P the control will go to either of these 3 options: case 349, or the next case 398, or case 558. In case the user gives a different plan value, the control comes to this default and says invalid plan. So this portion is your nested switch case. This nested switch case is nested within the previous case, that was case A of the outer switch. So outer switch case A, within that this is nested. Okay. This break is for the outer case, that is for case A. Case A, the break should be here, but since we have got nesting here, the break comes here. Okay. So case A is over for the outer switch. Now we come to the next case of the outer switch, that is case J. Remember, the next network is Jio. So case J. Again we are printing out the plans. If the user chooses J, these are the plans that are available. And we are asking the user to enter the plan value. Directly the plan value will be entered by the user, that will be stored in P. Again within case J, we have got this nested case. The plans are coming under the nested switch case. Okay, like I had explained in the previous one with case A, the same thing happens here with case J. Nesting. The only thing is these are different plan values. Okay, what we had with Airtel is different for Jio. So whatever the user enters, the plan value is given here. One of the plan value will match with the value of P, and the control will come to that particular plan and execute whatever is there. Clear? So this is the nested switch case for the previous case, that is case J. And similarly, for the break for this case comes here. This one. Fine. So two case we have finished for the outer switch. Now the third case for the outer switch. So case V. Remember the third network was Vodafone. So if the user gives V, capital V or small v, this case becomes operational. So here again we are displaying the different plan values for Vodafone for this network. And similarly we are asking for the plan amount. The user has to enter the plan amount. One thing, remember, the user has to enter on the value 199, not rupees 199. Please don't use this, because the moment you use RS or any other character, it is no more int type. Okay, you will get an exception. So be careful when the user enters the value. Okay, the user needs to enter only this numeric portion, not this one. Right? So whatever is the value, that will be stored in P. Now comes the nesting part. So again we have got this one. Whatever is written in blue is the nested switch case for the case V. So if the user has chosen Vodafone, the third case, the user gets to choose from the plan, and depending on the plan, one of this will be valid, one of this case will be valid. So again this is the nested switch case for the previous case. So that portion is nested within case V. Fine. And the break that is supposed to come here is given here. Okay. So we have gone through 3 different cases for the outer switch. Each case has got a nested switch case like this. Fine. And then we need this default. This default is for the outer switch case. After case A, case J, case V, we have got this default. This will take place if the user gives a network, chooses a network that is not there in the list. Suppose the user gives a variable value, say B. Now B is not there in our menu. So the control will come to this default and say invalid network. And of course then we close the outer switch, we close the main, we close the class. Fine. Remember, this is the closing of the inner switch. Inner switch. This is the matching curly brackets. This is the closing of the outer switch. So you close the outer switch only at the end. Fine. So this is the program that we have written for the problem. Now if we run this program, let's see what happens. Okay, I've used the BlueJ programming concept. So here we have run the program, executed the program, and as I execute the program, this comes on the terminal window. See, because of the menu, I've got network, Airtel, Jio, and Vodafone. Remember, with the print statement, I've used /t. /t has shifted this. The word network has shifted by 2 tabs because I've used twice /t/t. If I had not used /t, then this network would have come here. Okay, just to look nice, I've used /t. And /n, you see there is a gap here. So /n in the beginning sends a line here and starts printing. Again /n will go to the next line, /n will go to the next line. So each time I have given /n, the control goes to the next line. /t is shifting the remark to the right. So this is the menu, network, and we have got the 3 different network, Airtel, Jio, and Vodafone. Then the program is saying, please enter the first letter of your chosen network. So this, looking at this, the user know what is expected. Here it is expecting that the user will give one of the 3 alphabets, A, J, or V. So for example, I give A. We enter A. Remember, A is for Airtel. So the first case, if you look at the switch case, outer switch, the first case is A, capital A or small a. That means the first K has become valid. So within the first case, we had this display, welcome to Airtel Recharge, and then the 3 different plans. These are the 3 different plans that are under Airtel that we had displayed in our program. And then our program is saying, enter the plan amount. So the program is telling the user to enter the plan amount, not 1, 2, 3, the plan amount that is visible here. So for example, I enter 398. Okay. Here I have chosen A, so it has come to case A. Under case A, the plans have come, and from the plan I have chosen 398. Now because of 398, the control has gone to the inner switch case plan 398, and it has said you have chosen Airtel 398. Okay. So outer switch, I have chosen A. It has gone to case A. Inside case A, it has displayed this. Because of this, I am asked to enter the plan amount. This portion, remember, is inside the case A. Then as I enter 398, it goes to the inner case of the inner switch. So we have got 3 different switch for the inner one. 349, 398 and 558, the 3 different case value. Since I have given 398, it has gone to the second case. And this is the statement that was there in the innermost case. So it says you have chosen Airtel 398. So outer switch, this one, inner switch, this portion, okay? Inner switch. This portion is coming from the outer switch. This portion is coming from the nested switch. The similar thing goes for all the other network, right? Now this is an example where, see, I have given V, first letter V, small v. It comes to the Vodafone part. That is the third case. Outer switch, case 3. The third case was case capital V or small v. So it has gone to the third option, where it has shown or it has displayed the plan for Vodafone Recharge. And we are expected to enter a plan here. Suppose I give a plan that is not valid here. Suppose I give 600. So when I give 600, you see 600 doesn't exist here. So I get the obvious message, invalid plan. This portion is coming from the default option of the nested switch case. Each of the nested switch case has the default value, default option. In the default option, we have written invalid plan. So when I give 600, this default gets activated. Why the default gets activated? Because this amount doesn't match with the case values. The case values are 199, 249, 399. So this amount, this value 600 doesn't match with any of the case value. So control goes to the default option and it prints invalid plan. Clear? Similarly, right at the very beginning, the outer switch case, where I have to choose the network. Instead of A, J or V, I have given I. Okay? I doesn't exist here. So obviously, none of the case, outer switch, the case values, remember, are A, J and V. So I doesn't exist. So none of the case values will match with I. So control will go to the outermost default option. And in the outermost default option, we have got invalid network. Because remember, the outer switch cases deals with network. The inner switch cases deals with the plan. So here, the very outer case, switch case, is invalid. So we are getting the option invalid network. If it was inner one, like in the previous ones, if it was the inner one which was invalid, we would have got invalid plan. In the outer one, we are getting invalid network. Clear? So this is how the switch case, the nested switch case works. Outer one, and then within each of the case for the outer one, we have got a second level of nesting. Okay? The inner ones can have any number of case, the outer one also can have any number of case. Also, some of the case may not have a nested case also. It will all depend on your programming logic, right? Please review this question once more and try to understand what has been explained. You need to see this, this episode 2 or 3 times to clearly grasp the working of nested switch case. Fine? So with this, I think we'll stop here. In the next episode, we'll be starting up if else. Okay? So stay safe, stay at home. Thank you.
Hello students, welcome to ICSE History online video lessons. In our last session, we went through the formation of the Indian National Congress. And while I was discussing the formation of this organization, I remember telling you about some of the founding members, like we had Dadabhai Naoroji, Umesh Chandra Banerjee, Surendranath Banerjee, Badruddin Tayabji, who were some of the early members of this particular Congress. In today's session, I will be looking at the national movement phase 1 and phase 2. Normally, you will find 2 chapters, one on the early nationalists and second on the assertive nationalists. There are 2 separate chapters in your textbook. But today, I would like to combine the 2 chapters and study the national movement, both phase 1 and phase 2. But before I do that, let me quickly go through the syllabus as prescribed by the Council. All right. In the first phase of the Indian national movement, what you are expected to study is the time frame from 1885 to 1905, objectives and methods of struggle of the early nationalists. In your textbooks, please be very, very clear. You have to study the objectives and the methods of struggle of the early nationalists and any 2 contributions of Dadabhai Naoroji, Surendranath Banerjee and Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Now, in your textbook, you might come across the demands of the early nationalists, failures, their achievements, etc. But that you can just understand it, you can go through it for a better understanding, but you will not be tested for that. And out of so many other early nationalists or the other members of the Congress, you just need to study 2 contributions. I'm again repeating, 2 contributions written by the Council itself regarding Dadabhai Naoroji, Surendranath Banerjee and Gopal Krishna Gokhale. In the second phase of the Indian national movement, which begins at 1905 and will end in 1916, here brief mention of the causes for the partition of Bengal. Since the assertive nationalists, the radical nationalists had an important role and also contribution towards the anti-partition movement. So you need to understand the partition of Bengal and its causes. Brief mentioning of the Surat split, which took place in 1907, the reason behind the cause of the split, and also 2 contributions, just like the moderates or the early nationalists, 2 contributions we need to study about, again, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Bipin Chandra Pal, and we have Lala Lajpat Rai. So with these 2, the phase 1 and phase 2, today's session I will be using it to discuss, to explain regarding the contributions and also the methods of struggle. So let's start today's session with the first phase of the national movement. The first phase of the national movement, I will be discussing about the growth of nationalism Please take a look at the time frame from 1885 to 1905, which makes it exactly 20 years. This 20 years of history, 20 years events, historical events, will be again will be made compact, and then we will study about the early nationalists and their achievements. First and foremost, let us go through the objectives of the chapter, why we need to study about the early nationalists. We need to study about them to understand the meaning of moderates, because we refer to this group as the moderate group. But why was this term assigned to them? Why were they referred to as the moderates? That will be our subject matter. Next is objectives and methods, the early demands, and two contributions of the early nationalists. Coming to the timeline, we have from 1885, the Indian National Congress was formed. A lot of explanation has already been done regarding this topic in our previous session. Now, coming to 1886, this very historic session of INC was conducted in 1886, and in 1892, because of the demands of the moderates, because of their methods of protest, a very, very important act was passed by the British in 1892 with the name of Indian Councils Act of 1892. Objectives and methods of the early nationalists, their demands, achievements, and the contributions. Now we come to the beliefs and methods of the early nationalists. Why were they called moderates? And in 2020, this year, for the history and civics examination, two questions had come from here in the objective session. One was to give two contributions of Bipin Chandra Pal, and the other one was why were they referred to as the moderates? So let us take a look at the reason why the group of early nationalists was known as the moderates. What we need to understand is these early nationalists, or these early group of congressmen, most of them had received Western education. Because they received Western education, therefore, they also had Western thoughts. They always felt that the British rule in India is a boon and it is not a curse. Therefore, their perspective of the British was that we have to appreciate that the British have come to India. We have to appreciate their rule, their administration in India, as well as we have to not ask for independence. That is the last thing that we are going to ask for it, but we have to ask for self-government. Independence was never asked. Swaraj was never a demand of the early nationalists. The only thing that they asked for is self-government, right? Now, since I have already explained to you how they went and received Western education, that is why they had this Western outlook, very, very modern, very broad-minded. They always considered the British to be the true friends. They enjoyed the company of the English. That is why it's written here, the early nationalists believed in the true sense of justice and honesty of the British. Look at the two words, sense of justice and honesty. Throughout, when we looked at the 1857 chapter, I do not feel that the revolution took place because the British were honest and the British were just. We have studied in the chapter regarding the exploitation of the British towards the Indians. We have seen militarily, economically, politically, socially, how they dominated the Indians. This anger, this frustration of the Indians culminated into the revolution of 1857. And later on, we saw the formation of the Congress. But it is very, very surprising to note that these early congressmen felt that the British have a true sense of justice. It's a wait and watch policy. One fine day, they will reward us, right? And the second thing is, they always believed in the honesty of the British. So this is a very, very contradicting image or a contradicting perspective of the British that we get in the first chapter, that is 1857, and the third chapter regarding the early nationalists. Second, they were, because you believe that they are just, because you appreciate their honesty, that is why the early nationalists were also friendly. They loved to be the friends of the Englishmen, and they wanted to show their friendship by being loyal to the British. That is why some of the historians feel that they were a group of yes men. They agreed to the policies of the British. They were always appreciating the administration of the British and never countered the British in this 20 years of rule. From 1885 to 1905, which is a 20-year long rule of the early moderates, you never see any protest movements, you never see any revolution. The reason is because they were friendly and loyal to the British. Next, they were mostly educated individuals. Later on, I will just read in a synopsis, I will read the biographies of Dadabhai Naoroji, Surendranath Banerjee, and you will realize how educated they were during those times. I'm not talking about the early 21st century, etc. In the 20th century only, these people were educated. They had traveled far and wide. And because they had Western thoughts, they belonged to the upper strata of Indian society. So while I am discussing the early nationalists, I'm not talking about the son of a farmer. I'm not talking about a laborer. I'm not talking about an artisan. I am talking about educated individuals. And even if you have a very simple calculation, how many Indians were educated? That also some of them had received Western education, had gone to England to appear for ICS examinations, etc. So what percentage of the Indians were educated and they belonged to the upper strata of the Indian society? Only a handful, all right? Next, they followed constitutional methods. The reason being, they are what kind of individuals? Educated individuals. And educated individuals will not have a radical approach. They will not have an extremist kind of approach. Most of them were also very aged. They were very wise. They were very prudent enough. That is why they preferred to use constitutional methods to achieve their goals. They also had their own demands. They also had their own wishes regarding India. That is why they had formed the Indian National Congress. But the way of demanding, the way of asking, the way of protesting was constitutional. They stuck to the framework of the rules and regulations, and they did not want to go out of it. Next, they adopted, now when I'm talking about constitutional methods, since we have to study about the methods that they approached, that is why I have written it down over here. They adopted the methods of, commonly it is known as the 3 Ps. 3 Ps meaning prayer. And prayer is not praying to God. It's not that they went to temples or they went to churches or gurdwaras praying to God to fulfill the demands. Prayer here meaning requesting, all right? They appealed to the British regarding the demands. Petition, everything was official, had to be written down. It is not like verbally they demanded something. They always believed in written work. Remember, they are just like the British. They want to do every work just like them. Therefore, petition, and last but not the least, protest. And here protest doesn't mean those big revolutions. Protest not with arms, not with weapons, not with lathis. Protest meaning they had very constitutional way of protesting in the form of rallies, in the form of processions, in the form of meetings, in the form of peaceful gatherings. So they adopted basically 3 P's method. 3 P's again standing for prayer, petition, and protest. So in your question, normally this comes in the objective as well as the long answer section. If you are asked what was their method of struggle, or what did they believe in, or why were they known as the moderates, so your answer will be they were known as the moderates because they believed in the British sense of justice and fair play. They were loyal and friendly towards the British. Educated masses believed in constitutional means. Approach was also very, very constitutional. Their method of protest was prayer, petition, and protest. That is why they were known as the moderates. So this form of agitation dominated the 20 years from 1885 to 1905. Now, what were the early demands? Early demands are not there in the syllabus, but we need to understand what did they ask for? What did they do in that 20 years? Tomorrow, if you have to sort of talk about it, about what did they do in that span of time, then this is what you have to say. Some of the early demands was expansion of the legislative and provincial council. They wanted more Indians in the provincial council. The Viceroy's executive council was there, but they did not want the domination of the Europeans. Rather, they felt now Indians are more educated, they are more experienced, they are also qualified, so they should also get a chance to sit and to decide matters regarding the country from the Viceroy's executive and legislative council. They were very unhappy. Sometimes they were not happy with the administration and certain unjust policies of the British, just like the Vernacular Press Act, Lord Lytton, how he introduced the Arms Act, reduction of the age for ICS examination. These came like, they dropped like bombs on them. They have full faith in the British. But when the British reciprocated the loyalty, the friendship by dropping bombs like Vernacular Press Act, the Arms Act, the lowering of ICS examinations age, that time the moderates did not keep quiet. In fact, they always protested against these unjust and repressive policies of the British. Next, they demanded for simultaneous examinations to be held in England as well as in India. In the early 20th century, we had the growth of the middle class. By taking the advantage of the Western education, most of the Indians were now qualifying for the ICS examinations. But they had to travel all the way to England to sit for that particular examination. So the moderates, one of the moderates' demand was, why should we travel all the way? Yes, of course, those who have money, those who can afford it, will go to England. But what about those candidates or those students who have the qualification but who do not have the money, who do not have these economic resources? So they demanded that we should have simultaneous meaning side by side, together. We must have it, one in England, the choice is there, one in England and the other one in India. Last is the growth of education. This is the sector. This is the place where they felt that we Indians are lacking. Remember, one of the reasons why we lost the revolution is because there was no planning, there was no preparation, there was no leadership. At that point of time, many of the Indians were economically exploited. We were suffering from poverty, unemployment, etc. But now, the education, since it had already come to India, and that also Western education, that is why the Indians felt that education is very, very necessary to bring about political awareness, to form public opinion, to form self-consciousness. And this is the sector where they wanted to focus on. And last but not the least, this is again another thing, that is employment. Dadabhai Naoroji had already mentioned it in his book, Poverty and Un-British Rule in India, regarding the economic exploitation of the British towards the Indians, the impact of the economic exploitation. Therefore, he felt to pacify the Indians, if you do not want any other revolution in future, the only way to pacify the Indians is to generate employment. Now, let us look at the achievements quickly. The demands have been made, but were the demands fulfilled or not? What was the reaction of the British towards these demands? So we'll quickly go through the achievements. The moderates laid the foundation of the national movement. It is very easy to come forward and criticize the moderates for their very passive rule of 20 years. You did not do this, you could have done that, you never brought up this issue of independence, etc. You all never spoke a word about Swaraj. It's very easy to criticize them for their policies. But what we need to understand is the policies, the demands of the moderates were after all, a stepping stone towards the achievement of independence in 1947. If they would not have taken these baby steps, right? If they would not have initiated the Indian National Congress, probably the Indian independence would have prolonged by I do not know how many more years. So what we need to look at is, yes, the moderates were successful. They laid the foundation of the national movement. They exposed through their writings, through articles, through public speeches, through petitions, they exposed the economic exploitation of the British, because of which the Indian Councils Act was passed in 1892. In that timeline that I'd shown you earlier, I have given you, all right, the sessions of the Congress, and the outcome of the demands was that the Indian Councils Act in 1892, not to forget, because of the moderates, many social reforms were also introduced, like abolition of caste system was already there, but we needed some changes in the Indian society, education, employment, then they also stressed on women's education. So these were some of the achievements of the moderates. Now let us look at the contributions of the early nationalists. In your syllabus, you just need to discuss 2 contributions. The contributions, normally, you might get a picture study. Normally, it is on Dadabhai Naoroji sector, or you will get a long question on where you have to discuss everything regarding Dadabhai Naoroji, or one of the leaders of the early nationalists. In this slide, you will just see 3 contributions, because I felt that only 2 are required, and just for a quicker understanding, I need to give only 3. But I have decided that since if you need to understand early nationalism, if you need to understand the ideologies of the early nationalists, then just 3 contributions or 2 contributions will not be enough. You need to understand them. I have to elaborate their contributions. So therefore, I will be discussing each of these early nationalists in detail. All right. Coming to Dadabhai Naoroji, you can see the picture of an old man here, right? Now, Dadabhai Naoroji is generally known as the grand old man of India. He passed away at the age of 92. We have mentioned him right from the 2nd chapter when the Congress was being formed. We have also discussed about Dadabhai Naoroji's East India Association, which was a predecessor of the Indian National Congress. And this association was formed not in India, but in England. So we have here the grand old man of India. He was looked upon as, he is also referred to as India's unofficial ambassador to England. So normally you get a 1-mark question sometimes. Who is known as India's unofficial ambassador to England? Or name India's unofficial ambassador to England. So your answer will become Dadabhai Naoroji. And you can put this also as one of the contributions of Dadabhai Naoroji. He was elected to the Bombay Municipal Corporation, later to the Town Council. He was the founder of Bombay Association. The newspaper Rast Guftar was also edited by him. So multi-talented. Came from a business family, but he was also a professor for a brief period of time. He was also there as an editor of a newspaper. He formed an association also. He later joined the national movement. So he has so many roles to play. In 1865, he founded the London India Society in collaboration with W.C. Banerjee. He also wrote a book, The Theory of Drain, was presented by him in his book Poverty and Un-British Rule in India. After spending years collecting statistics, Dadabhai propounded that the inevitable consequences of foreign domination is the drain of wealth of the subject nation to the country of the rulers. Then he was also the president of the Congress, especially. The second session is very, very important because he presided over that session. The session of 1906 is also very historic because at that point of time, Dadabhai Naoroji, being a moderate, coming from this group of early nationalists, he first uttered the demand for Swaraj. Swaraj was always looked as an issue of the radical nationalists or the assertive nationalists. But in 1906, Dadabhai Naoroji, he uttered the word Swaraj, and this was one of the demands of the Congress later on. Then in England during the years 1892, he presented the cause of the Indians in the House. 1866, he established the East India Association, which became very popular, and branches of the East India Association was also set up in Calcutta, Bombay, and Madras. So in a very short form, I have tried to give the details of Dadabhai Naoroji. Only 2 are required. You can write any of them. Here, I have just mentioned some of the important contribution. The drain of wealth theory, which he explained. And then the book, Poverty and Un-British Rule in India. Formation of East India Association in 1866. You can also mention India's unofficial ambassador to England. You can also mention how he presided over the Congress in 1906 and how he made the demand for Swaraj for the first time. So these are some of the contributions of Dadabhai Naoroji. Coming to the next early nationalists, we have Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Again, regarding Gopal Krishna Gokhale, there are few things that I would like to read. Gopal Krishna Gokhale was influenced by the ideas of Justice M.G. Ranade. They were instrumental in forming the Deccan Educational Society. He joined the Deccan Educational Society, which was founded by Justice Ranade. Later, Tilak is also associated with it. Gokhale presided over the Varanasi session of the INC in 1905, and he also founded, I have written here, in 1905, that was the last year of the moderates, the Servants of India Society. Usually this comes for 2 marks. Name the association founded by Gopal Krishna Gokhale, or who founded the Servants of India Society. Next, Gokhale presided over the Varanasi session. He went to England and Africa, and then we also see that I've written here, he supported the Swadeshi movement. He was for this particular movement called Swadeshi, and he was also awarded or given a title of Companion of the Indian Empire. Not to forget, he is regarded as the political mentor of Gandhi. Gopal Krishna Gokhale was the person who actually pushed Gandhiji, right, to join the national movement. So when we look at the national movement, especially the Gandhian era, which starts from 1915 and goes right up till 1948, if we have to study the ideologies of Gandhiji and also study who inspired and influenced him, some of the leaders who had a great mark on Gandhiji's thoughts and ideas, two of them I would like to mention. One is Gopal Krishna Gokhale, that is why he is also known as the political mentor of Gandhi. And the second one is Tilak, who is regarded as the political guru of Gandhi. One is regarded as the mentor and the other one is regarded as the guru. Next, we come to Surendranath Banerjee. Now, Surendranath Banerjee, it's written here, was a nationalist leader, popular journalist doing so many things together, and also a dedicated educationist. He also established a school, and then later it went on. It grew into a college known as the famous Ripon College, who advocated the use of constitutional methods for the attainment of India's goals. He was the first Indian, I have mentioned here, he was the first Indian to pass the ICS examination and was elected from the Bengal Council 4 times. Since he was editing newspapers, that is why he used the newspaper to attack some of the unjust policies of the British, like the Arms Act, the Vernacular Press Act, and the lowering of the age for the ICS examination from 21 to 19 years. He is also popularly known as the father of Indian nationalism. So studying about Surendranath Banerjee, these are some of the contributions. Let me just repeat it once more. Formed the Indian Association, one of the precursors of the Indian National Congress in 1876. First person to pass the ICS examination. He edited the newspaper called Bengali. So he used the newspaper as a weapon to attack, to criticize the policies of the British. And he also wrote a book, A Nation in the Making. So out of these points, you can write any two. Now that we have finished the first phase, in the first phase, again, let me just quickly recap. We have studied the objectives of the moderates and why were they called so, their beliefs, their struggles, their methods, contributions of the early nationalists. Now it is time to discuss the second phase of the national movement, which begins from 1905 and ends in 1916. And this phase was dominated by young, all right, very young, educated Indians who were known as, they got this particular group name as the assertive nationalists or the radicals. Now, if you have to look at the objectives, why we need to study this portion, we have to study it to understand their methods of struggle, their involvement in partition of Bengal, the contribution of assertive leaders, again, to each, and last but not the least, we will try to look into the cause of the Surat split. Let us look at the beliefs and the methods of struggle. Just like we saw the beliefs of the early nationalists, who felt that the British are their friends, they are loyal, they are just, they are fair. Let us compare it with the assertive nationalists. The assertive nationalists believed in self-respect, self-reliance, and self-confidence. They do not believe in the loyalty towards the British. They do not believe in their sense of justice and fair play. They do not believe that the British are honest people. They believe rather in themselves. Rather than believing in a group, they feel that it is better to believe in yourself. And how will you create that belief? That belief will come out of self-respect. Respect yourself for whoever you are. You have to create that belief through self-reliance. And this comes out later in the Swadeshi movement, where they appeal to the Indians that you have to stop using these British manufactured goods. Why don't we start with our own manufacturing, Swadeshi goods? And if you have self-respect and self-reliance, then this will amount to self-confidence. Initially, you might not have it, but later on, this reliance, this respect will create confidence. Next, they expose the hypocrisy of the British. Now, it takes a lot of courage to do that. Whereas the moderates were always saying yes, they were always protesting in a very mild manner, through prayer, through petition. These young group of leaders are just the opposite of the early nationalists. They do not want to wait for long. They don't have the patience to believe in the justice of the British. That is why they exposed the hypocrisy of the British. On one hand, you call all the moderates to a garden tea party and you congratulate them for forming the organization. On the other hand, when they start demanding or criticizing, then you label them as seditious Brahmins or disloyal Babus. On one hand, you act very friendly towards the Indians, and on the other hand, you drop bombs like Arms Act and your Vernacular Press Act, and you lower the age of the ICS examination. The young leaders were not to be eye-washed with all these policies. So they wanted to show it in front of the Indians, the hypocrisy, all right? This theory, the double-sided face of the British. Next is they believed in, now this is again just the opposite of the moderates, they believed in mass movement. Remember when I was explaining to you about the moderates, or when I read about the contributions of Dadabhai Naoroji and Gokhale and Surendranath Banerjee, they were the leaders who were educated and had traveled to England. They had formed association, meaning they come from a wealthy class. They are educated, few in number, wealthy, but they did not have any connection with the grassroots people. That is why the radicals, the assertive nationalists felt that if we have to go against the British, if we have to criticize their policies, what we require right now is a mass movement. Mass meaning where you are not going to count in only the educated people, but you are going to count in right from men, women, children, students, industrialists, farmers, artisans. There will be no bar. Everybody will be involved as long as they are Indians. This is the kind of movement that they stood for. And last but not the least, they exposed the true nature of the British rule in India. And they were arrested many times. They were put behind bars many times, but they did not. They were not scared of it. They were not frightened. They did not run away. They continued with their beliefs and struggle. The methods of struggle. What are the methods that they used? In moderates, it is 3 Ps. When it comes to the assertive nationalists, the first thing that they used was, this was of a new kind. The first time it was being used, it is known as the Swadeshi movement, and coming from, again, the concept of self-reliance. Why do we have to bank on the British for everything? And at one time, even bangles and glasswares and utensils and sugar, everything was being brought from England and dumped into India at a high price. That is what Dadabhai Naoroji was trying to show in his book, The Drain of Wealth Theory. Our money was being drained, our resources was being drained. Now it was time for the radicals to expose that. It was time for the radicals to put an end to this drain of wealth. So they started with this campaign of Swadeshi, but you cannot start Swadeshi unless and until you boycott some of the things. Boycott here, if you are manufacturing Swadeshi goods, yes, you will boycott the foreign goods. But boycott also meant a form of disobedience, a form of non-cooperation, like not going to school, boycotting schools, boycotting colleges, boycotting offices, boycotting titles, right? Boycotting elections, boycotting taxes, which we see as one of the programs of the anti-partition movement. Next is national education. I think this is the platform where both the early nationalists as well as the assertive nationalists agree. They come to a consensus here regarding national education. They felt this is a very, very important sector until and unless the Indians are educated. They receive some sort of awareness. They are conscious. We will not be able to launch any kind of movement. So this national education was important. And last but not the least, self-reliance, which in Hindi we can translate it into Atma Shakti, which means believe in yourself. We have the power, we have the resources. So instead of relying on the British, it is time to rely on yourselves. Now, coming to the partition of Bengal, and I would like to wrap up today's session with this partition of Bengal by just giving you a slight picture about what happened in 1905 and the involvement of the assertive nationalists. Now, partition of Bengal, when we have to study it, I cannot begin the session on partition of Bengal without introducing you to Lord Curzon. We have come across various viceroys like Lord Canning and Lord Dalhousie, right? Lord Lytton, Lord Ripon. Some of them were horrible, some of them were very good. But I think Lord Curzon surpasses them all because we cannot forget this person for introducing the partition of Bengal. Lord Curzon, his viceroyalty, I'll show it here. He came to India in 1899 and stayed till 1905. And the reason why we cannot forget Lord Curzon is for some of his repressive policies. Sometimes we remember people for good things, and sometimes we remember people for the bad things. I think here we have to remember Lord Curzon for the second reason. What did he introduce? Calcutta Corporation Act of 1899, whereby you would have more Europeans in the Calcutta Corporation. The number of Indians were decreased, so less Indians would be there in the Calcutta Corporation. And this policy he introduced immediately as he came to India. So he did not even wait. Right? He just introduced this unjust policy called Calcutta Corporation Act. The next was the Universities Act of 1904. The number of Indian teachers were now decreased. Again, this would lead to unemployment. Many qualified Indian teachers were there, but just because they happened to be Indians, that is why the appointment of Indian teachers were decreased and more European teachers were taken. The next one is Official Secrets Act. Somehow, Lord Curzon could feel that something is not right. Till the time the moderates were there in 1905, everything was going okay. But a new set of young, energetic, the group with radical mindset was entering the national movement, and this could cause some kind of danger for the British. Sensing this danger, he came up with the Official Secrets Act of 1905, because of which many of these national leaders went behind bars also. And to top it all, he was doing it one after the other, but something that really created the explosion was the partition of Bengal, which was in 1905. So with this, I would like to end today's lecture. In my next session, I will definitely explain to you the causes behind the partition, the official reasons, the unofficial reasons, the contributions of the assertive nationalists, and I will end with the Surat split. Thank you very much for watching my video. Till then, stay safe, stay indoors, and save lives. Thank you.
दशौं श्रेणीका सम्पूर्ण विद्यार्थीहरूलाई पुनः एकचोटि यो अनलाइन क्लासमा म हार्दिक स्वागत अभिवादन जनाउँछु। यसको साथसाथै अभिभावकहरू, यो लामो लकडाउनको समयमा तपाईहरू विचलित नहुनुहोस्। तपाईहरूले आफ्नो नानीहरूलाई लगातार शिक्षा दिइरहनुहोस् र विद्यार्थीहरूले पनि 2021 को परीक्षालाई ध्यानमा राखेर परीक्षाको तयारी गर्ने क्रममा नेपाली विषयको पाठ्यक्रम अन्तर्गत हामीले विद्यार्थीहरूलाई जुन नेपालीको कविता सुरु गरेका थियौँ र कविताको आज अन्तिम कविता म पढाउन लागिरहेको छु। कविताको शीर्षक छ उत्सर्ग। डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासको यो कविता पढाउन लागिरहेको छु र यो हाम्रो पाठ्यक्रमभित्र परेको कविताबाट यो अन्तिम कविता हो र विद्यार्थीहरूलाई आज उत्सर्ग शीर्षक कविता म प्रस्तुत गर्न लागिरहेछु। यसभन्दा अघि म डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासको परिचय राख्नेछु र सर्वप्रथम यो साहित्य कुञ्जबाट हामी पढिरहेका छौँ र उत्सर्ग शीर्षक कविता डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासको कविता खुबै रोचक, खुबै सान्दर्भिक, देशभक्तिमा आधारित, वीर सैनिकहरूको गाथालाई, वीर सैनिकहरूलाई स्मरण गरेर उनीहरूको योगदान, उनीहरूको त्याग र बलिदानको कदर गरेर लेखिएको यो कविता उत्सर्ग शीर्षक कविता आज हामी पढ्नेछौँ। यो पाठ 10 मा रहेको अन्तिम कविता, कविता खण्डबाट अन्तिम कविता हो। यो कविता आज हामी पढ्न लागिरहेका छौँ र उत्सर्गको अर्थ हुन्छ त्याग अथवा बलिदान, आफ्नो जीवन बलिदान दिनु अथवा उत्सर्ग गर्नु, त्याग गर्नु भन्ने अर्थमा बुझिन्छ। उत्सर्ग भन्नाले यहाँनिर सैनिकहरूले आफ्नो जीवनलाई उत्सर्ग गरेको कुरा उल्लेख गरिएको छ। आफ्नो देशको निम्ति, आफ्नो मातृभूमिको निम्ति, आफ्नो जन्मभूमिको निम्ति सैनिकहरूले गरेको उत्सर्ग अथवा त्यागको कथालाई, व्यथालाई यहाँनिर डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासले यो कवितामा व्यक्त गर्ने चेष्टा गर्नुभएको छ र डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासले हाम्रो समाजमा, हाम्रो देशको निम्ति सधैँ सधैँ त्यागको भावना राखेर अघि आउने सैनिकहरूको मूल्याङ्कन हुनुपर्छ अथवा स्मरण गर्नुपर्छ। त्यो उत्सर्ग, सैनिकहरूले गरेको उत्सर्गको सधैँ कदर हुनुपर्छ, त्याग हुनु, त्यो त्यागको कदर गरिनुपर्छ भन्ने कुरालाई आफ्नो कवितामा व्यक्त गर्नुभएको छ। डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासको परिचय हामी हेर्नेछौँ। डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दास जन्म 27 मार्च 1934, कलकत्तामा जन्म लिएकी लक्कीदेवी सुन्दास नेपाली साहित्यको एक प्रतिभाशाली नारी लेखिका हुन्। डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दास कलकत्तामा जन्मग्रहण गरिन्। डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दास केवल एकजना सफल लेखिका मात्र होइन, एकजना नारी सशक्त हस्ताक्षर मात्र होइन, तर उहाँ प्रशासनिक पदमा रहेर काम गरेको पनि पाउँछौँ। जति बेला डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दास प्रशासनिक पदमा थिइन् अथवा दार्जिलिङ पार्वतीय मामिला विभागको सचिवको पदमा रहेर उनले धेरै वर्षसम्म काम गरिन्। काम गर्दाखेरि दार्जिलिङ पहाडको शैक्षिक विकासको निम्ति, दार्जिलिङ पहाडको सामाजिक विकासको निम्ति, दार्जिलिङ पहाडको अर्थनैतिक विकासको निम्ति पनि डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासले धेरै महत्त्वपूर्ण योगदान पुर्याएको हामी पाउँछौँ। प्रतिभाशाली एक नारी लेखिकाको रूपमा हामी चिन्छौँ। दार्जिलिङको शारदेश्वरी पाठशालाबाट मेट्रिक पास गरेपछि 10औं श्रेणीको परीक्षा शारदेश्वरी पाठशालाबाट उत्तीर्ण गरेपछि दार्जिलिङ सरकारी कलेजबाट बिए पास गरिन् र कलकत्ता विश्वविद्यालयबाट एमए र ल पास गरिन्। उनी लमा अथवा कानुन विषयमा पनि अध्ययन गरेकी थिइन्। त्रिभुवन विश्वविद्यालय नेपालबाट विद्यावरदी भनेको पिएचडी अथवा डक्टरेटको उपाधि त्रिभुवन युनिभर्सिटीबाट नेपालबाट उनले प्राप्त गरिन्। लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासले विद्यार्थी छँदा नै दार्जिलिङबाट प्रकाशित हुने पत्रिकाहरू साथी, गोर्खा, हाम्रो कथामा आफ्ना रचनाहरू प्रकाशित गरेको पाइन्छ। डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासले विद्यार्थी छँदादेखि नै आफ्नो कलम अगाडि बढाइन् अथवा चलाइन् र डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासले विद्यार्थी छँदादेखि नै विभिन्न पत्रपत्रिकाहरूमा आफ्ना रचनाहरू प्रकाशित गरेको हामी पाउँछौँ। उनले अकादमी निबन्धवाली, उनलाई एकजना सफल लेखिका मात्र होइन अथवा कवि मात्र होइन, तर एकजना निबन्धकारको रूपमा पनि हामी चिन्छौँ। उनले निबन्धहरू पनि खुबै राम्रो, रोचक निबन्धहरू पनि लेखेकी छन्। भानु स्मारक ग्रन्थ विवेचना दियालो पत्रिकाको सम्पादन पनि गरेका छन्। उनका कविताहरू धेरै पत्रपत्रिकामा प्रकाशित छन्। उनका कविताहरू धेरै पत्रपत्रिकामा पनि प्रकाशित भएको हामी पाउँछौँ। उनका प्रकाशित कृतिहरूमा आहत अनुभूति कथा सङ्ग्रह, एकजना कथाकारको रूपमा पनि हामी पाउँछौँ। सम्भावित अर्थ समर्पित एकान्त कविता सङ्ग्रह, यो बाहेक उनका निबन्धहरू विभिन्न पत्रपत्रिकामा प्रकाशित भएको पाउँछौँ। यसरी नेपाली साहित्यको श्रीवृद्धिमा सधैँ अग्रसर रहने लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासको केही साल अघि उनको निधन भइसकेको छ। नेपाली साहित्यमा महत्त्वपूर्ण योगदान पुर्याउने डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दास नेपाली भाषा, नेपाली साहित्य र नेपाली संस्कृतिको निम्ति एकजना अग्रज रहेर काम गर्ने साहित्यकारको रूपमा पाउँछौँ र उनको नाम कलकत्तामा बसेको कारणले गर्दा कलकत्ताकै एउटा प्रभावमा रहेर बङ्गाली कल्चर अथवा बङ्गाली संस्कृतिकै प्रभावमा रहेर लक्की अथवा धनको अर्थमा लक्की देवी भनेर नामाकरण गरिएको छ। लक्की शब्द यो बङ्गला शब्दबाट आएको छ र लक्कीदेवी सुन्दास एक नेपाली साहित्य, नेपाली समाज, दार्जिलिङको नेपाली समाजको निम्ति एक महत्त्वपूर्ण व्यक्तित्वको रूपमा हामी पाउँछौँ र उनले आफ्नो जीवनकालभरि नेपाली साहित्य भाषाको सम्वर्धन संरक्षणको निम्ति महत्त्वपूर्ण कार्य गरेको हामी पाउँछौँ। पाठ 10 बाट अन्तिम कविता उत्सर्ग डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासको कविता हामी पढ्न गइरहेका छौँ। तिमीले गरेको उत्सर्ग यहाँ यी कन्दराहरूले देख्नेछ, रगत पसिना एक गराई हाडहरूको पर्खाल बनाई अञ्जुली आफ्नै मार्क्स पिण्डको कथा इतिहासले साँच्नेछ, देखोस् नदेखोस् यो वर्तमान भावी पिँढीले देख्नेछ। कवि लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासले यहाँनिर सैनिकहरूलाई सम्बोधन गरेकी छन्। यो कवितामा सैनिकहरूलाई सम्बोधन गरेर लेखेकी छन् यो कविता। अनि उनले तिमी भनेर यहाँनिर सैनिकलाई सम्बोधन गरेकी छन्। यो तिमी भन्नुको अर्थ हो, तिमी भन्नुको तात्पर्य हो सैनिक अथवा देशको निम्ति प्राणको आहुति दिन पनि तत्पर रहने ती वीर वीरङ्गनाहरू जसले देशको निम्ति आफ्नो जीवन समर्पण पनि गर्छन्, त्यस्ता व्यक्तिहरूलाई सम्बोधन गरेर यो उत्सर्ग कविता लेखिएको छ। र तिमीले गरेको उत्सर्ग भनेर सैनिकहरूले गरेको उत्सर्ग हामीले नदेखे पनि अथवा देशवासीले मूल्याङ्कन नगरे पनि सर्वत्र देशका कुना कन्दराहरूसम्म तिम्रो इतिहास अथवा तिमीले गरेको कार्यको मूल्याङ्कन चाहिँ हुनेछ। एक दिन अवश्य नै यसको मूल्याङ्कन हुनेछ, तिमीले गरेको कार्यको मूल्याङ्कन हुनेछ भनेर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासले ती वीरहरूको स्तुति गाउँदै वीरहरूले गरेको कार्यको योगदान बारेमा प्रकाश पारेकी छन्। रगत पसिना एक गराए, रगत र पसिनालाई एक गराएर ती वीरहरूले जुन योगदान दिइरहेका छन्, आफ्नै हाडहरूको, आफ्नै शरीरको हाडहरूको पर्खाल बनाएर पनि देश रक्षाको निम्ति लड्ने ती वीर व्यक्तिहरूको कथालाई यो कवितामा डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासले देखाउने चेष्टा गरेकी छन्। र आजको समाजले अथवा आजको पिँढीले, आजको युवा पुस्ताले कवि लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासको भनाइअनुसार सैनिकहरूलाई अथवा सैनिकहरूले गरेको कार्यलाई मूल्याङ्कन गर्न नसके पनि यो कथा चाहिँ इतिहासमा लेखिनेछ अथवा इतिहासले मूल्याङ्कन गर्नेछ भनेर उनले भनेकी छन्। देखोस् नदेखोस् यो वर्तमान भनेको आज, अहिले आजको समाजले अथवा आजको अवस्थामा सैनिकहरूको योगदान नभए पनि भावी पिँढीले, आउने जेनेरेसनले अथवा आउने सन्ततिले यो स्मरण गर्नेछ। नभन तिम्रो उत्सर्ग यहाँ जङ्गली फुल झैँ मर्नेछ, नभन तिम्रो सिद्धिएको आयु मूल्यविहीन झैँ नै चुक्नेछ। तिमीले गरेको उत्सर्ग जसरी जङ्गलको फुल कति बेला फुल्छ अनि कति बेला मर्छ त्यो याद हुँदैन, कसैलाई पनि याद हुँदैन। यो चाहिँ नसम्झिनु कि जङ्गली फुल जस्तो हुन्छ तिमीले गरेको उत्सर्ग अथवा तिमीले गरेको त्याग, यो नसम्झिनु। अवश्य नै एक दिन न एक दिन तिमीले गरेको कार्यको मूल्याङ्कन हुन्छ भनेर सैनिकहरूलाई आह्वान गरेकी छन् अथवा सैनिकहरूलाई सम्बोधन यसरी गरेकी छन् लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासले। नभन तिम्रो सिद्धिएको आयु, तिमीले जुन देश रक्षाको निम्ति अथवा यो मातृभूमिको सुरक्षाको निम्ति जुन आयु तिमीले दिएको छौ अथवा आफ्नो उमेर दिएको छौ अथवा तिम्रो आयु त्यहाँ सकिएको छ, तिम्रो मरण भएको छ यो देशको निम्ति, त्यो मूल्यविहीन, त्यसको कुनै मूल्याङ्कन नभइकन सकिन्छ भनेर तिमीले नसोच्नु। आजको युग भनेको हिसाब किताबको युग हो, आजको युग हिसाब किताब राख्ने युग हो। काहीँ न कतै कसै न कसैले छद्म भेषमा बसेर भए पनि तिम्रो इतिहास चाहिँ लेखिरहेको हुन्छ अथवा तिमीले गरेको कार्यको काहीँ न कतै मूल्याङ्कन भइरहेको हुन्छ, काहीँ न कतै कुनै न कुनै व्यक्तिले स्मरण गरिरहेको हुन्छ भन्ने कुरा लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासले भनेकी छन्। चुक्ला मूल्य एक एकवटा कुराको मूल्याङ्कन हुन्छ, एक एकवटा कुराको स्मरण हुन्छ। चिसा उद्धारको ठाउँ छैन, काहीँ कसैले छद्म भेषमा तिम्रो इतिहास लेख्दैछ तिम्रो सिद्धिएको आएको। तिमीले जुन प्रकारले आफ्नो जीवन दिइरहेको छौ त्यो तिमीले दिएको जीवन अथवा तिमीले गरेको समर्पणको कथा चाहिँ काहीँ न कतैले कुनै व्यक्तिले छद्म भेषमा भन्नुको अर्थ आफ्नो नाम नदेखाइकन लुकेर भए पनि काहीँ न कतै कुनै व्यक्तिले तिम्रो इतिहास लेखिरहेको छ अथवा मूल्याङ्कन गरिरहेको छ। तिम्रो मूल्याङ्कनको कथा भोलि गएर इतिहासमा हाम्रो भावी सन्तानले पढ्नेछन्। एक मूल्य चुक्तै छ, यसैले नहार नभाग, उत्सर्ग गर। यहाँनिर कविले ती वीर सिपाहीहरूलाई अझ आह्वान गरेर प्रेरित गर्ने, प्रोत्साहित गर्ने काम गरेकी छन्। एक एकवटा कुराको मूल्याङ्कन हुन्छ, एक एकवटा कुराको स्मरण हुनेछ पछि। त्यसैले तिमी नहार नभाग, तिमी हामीलाई कसैले पनि याद गरेन भनेर हतोत्साही नबन। तिमीले उत्सर्ग गर, आफ्नो जीवन देऊ आफ्नो मातृभूमिको निम्ति, यो देशको सुरक्षाको निम्ति। तिमीले गरेको कार्यको मूल्याङ्कन अवश्य नै हुनेछ। तिमी जीर्ण शीर्ण खिँदै जाऊ, तिम्रो जीवनलाई खियाउँदै लैजाऊ, अथवा शीर्ण भन्नुको अर्थ तिम्रो शरीरलाई पातलाउँदै लैजाऊ अथवा तिम्रो शरीर खिँदै जान्छ। जति तिमी परिश्रम गर्छौ, मेहनत गर्छौ, जति खट्छौ, त्यति तिम्रो शरीर दुब्लो पातलो हुँदै जान्छ। तिमी दुब्लिन्छौ, पातलिन्छौ तिमी। तर मेरो शरीर सकियो भनेर तिमी हतोत्साही नबन। जति तिमी आफ्नो जीवन उत्सर्ग गर्न अग्रसर हुन्छौ अथवा जीवन त्याग गर्न अग्रसर बन्छौ, यो देशको निम्ति हुनेछ, यो मातृभूमिको निम्ति हुनेछ। मक्किँदै जाऊ, सिपाही प्रहरी मजदुर देशको, नसोच यो उपलब्धि कम हो। चाहे तिमी सिपाही भएर काम गर्दै गरेको होस्, चाहे तिमी एकजना प्रहरी भएर काम गर्दै गरेको किन नहोस्, चाहे तिमी एकजना मजदुर भएर काम गर्दै गरेको किन नहोस्, तिमीले गरेको यो त्याग चाहिँ, तिमीले गरेको यो उपलब्धि चाहिँ कम्ती उपलब्धि होइन। तिमी आफूलाई साधारण पदमा छु भनेर कहिले पनि नसोच। तिमीले गरेको त्याग, तिमीले गरेको बलिदान चाहिँ यो देशको निम्ति महत्त्वपूर्ण छ। यो उपलब्धि चाहिँ महत्त्वपूर्ण छ। मृत्युपछि पनि बन्छौ शहीद। जब मृत्यु हुन्छ, यो देशको निम्ति लड्दै तिमीले आफ्नो जब प्राणको आहुति दिन्छौ अथवा तिम्रो निधन हुन्छ, त्यति बेला तिमी यो देशको वीर शहीदको रूपमा परिचित हुन्छौ अथवा स्थापित हुन्छौ। तिम्रो नाम वीर शहीदको रूपमा लेखिन्छ। उपाधि, तकमा, सम्मान पत्र पनि पाउँछौ, वीरत्वको अमिट छाप। त्यति बेला तिमीले उपाधि पनि पाउँछौ, तकमा पनि पाउँछौ अनि सम्मान पनि पाउँछौ। देशले तिम्रो मूल्याङ्कन गर्छ अनि त्यति बेला तिमीलाई वीरत्व, एकजना वीर व्यक्ति भनेर देशभरि तिम्रो नाम चल्नेछ अथवा स्मरण गरिरहनेछन् सबैले। एकजना महान शहीदको रूपमा तिम्रो नाम आउनेछ। तिमी देश रत्न कर्मठ वीर, तिमी देशको रत्न हौ। तिम्रो मूल्याङ्कन यस्तो प्रकारले हुन्छ कि एउटा साधारण व्यक्ति होइन, तिमी एकजना असाधारण व्यक्ति हो। तिमी देशको सुरक्षाको निम्ति काम गर्ने व्यक्ति हो। तिमी देशको रत्न हो, कर्मठ वीर हो, कर्मठ कार्यकर्ता हो तिमी भनेर डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासले भनेकी छन्। आदर्श त्यागका प्रतिमूर्ति नै चाहिएन परिवार जहान आफ्ना, वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम मन्त्र लि रगत पसिना एक गराई, गौरव देशको तिमी बन, उत्सर्ग गर। यहाँनिर कविले भनेकी छन् तिमीले एउटा परिवार, आफ्नो परिवारलाई मात्र नहेर, आफ्नो घर, आफ्नो छोराछोरीलाई मात्र नहेर, तिम्रो निम्ति परिवार भनेको वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम भन्नुको अर्थ हो संसार नै मेरो परिवार हो, संसार नै एउटा परिवार हो भन्ने भावना राखेर तिमी काम गर्दै जाऊ। तिम्रो निम्ति केवल तिम्रो परिवार अथवा तिम्रो घर मात्र होइन, तिम्रो घर, तिम्रो परिवार त सारा समाज हो। तिम्रो यो देश नै तिम्रो घर हो, तिम्रो परिवार हो। त्यो वसुधैव कुटुम्बकमको मन्त्र लिएर रगत पसिना बगाएर तिमी अघि बढ, किनभने तिमी यो देशको गौरव हो। तिमी यो देशको निम्ति कार्य गर्ने महान व्यक्ति हौ। त्यसले गर्दा तिमीले उत्सर्ग गरेर आफ्नो जीवन त्याग गर्न पनि तत्पर बन। तिम्रा छातीका टलकदार ब्याज, तिम्रा कल्कीदार टोपी, पालिसदार बुटपट्टी, तिम्रा शानका जाजल्य प्रतीक, तिम्रा शानका परेड खेलाइ, तिम्रो शानको हिँडाइ बसाइ, तिम्रो मृत्यु कहिल्यै छैन। यहाँनिर कविले भनेकी छन् तिम्रा छातीका टलकदार ब्याज, तिमीले लगाएको जुन तिम्रो पोसाकमा लगाइएको ब्याज छ, छातीमा लगाइएको ब्याज, टलकदार टल्किरहेको त्यो ब्याज छ, तिम्रो कल्कीदार टोपीमा जुन त्यो चराको प्वाख सिउरिएको छ, सुन्दर प्वाँख है सिउरिएको हुन्छ, त्यो देख्दै एकदम सुन्दर देखिन्छ। पालिसदार पलिस लगाएको बुटपट्टी तिमीले लगाएको छौ, तिम्रो शान त्यसले तिम्रो इज्जत बढाउँछ, शान बढाउँछ। जाज्वल्य भनेको उज्यालो, एकदम मजाको राम्रो सुन्दर देखिन्छ। जाज्वल्य प्रतीक भनेको एकदम उज्यालो एउटा प्रतीकको रूपमा तिमीलाई देखिन्छ। अनि तिम्रो हिँडाइ एकदम शानको छ, घमण्डको हिँडाइ छ तिम्रो हिँडाइ, तिम्रो बसाइ। त्यसैले गर्दा तिम्रो मृत्यु कहिले पनि छैन। तिमीले नसम्झिनु म मरेँ भनेर, तिमीले उत्सर्ग गर्दाखेरि पनि तिम्रो त्यो स्मरण, तिम्रो कार्य गराइको याद चाहिँ सधैँभरि रहिरहनेछ। अडिक हिमाल चाहिँ अजर अमर, जसरी एउटा हिमाल अडिक रहन्छ, त्यो हल्लिँदैन, त्यहाँ सधैँ स्थिर रहन्छ, त्यस्तै प्रकारले तिमी यो देशको निम्ति, हरेक देशका नागरिकको निम्ति तिम्रो नाम पनि अजर अमर छ। यो कहिले पनि मेटिँदैन, नमेटिने हिसाबले रहिरहन्छ। सुरक्षित इतिहासको पाता तिमीलाई, यो इतिहासको पन्ना, इतिहासको पेज, इतिहासको पृष्ठ तिम्रो निम्ति सुरक्षित छ। जहाँ तिम्रो नाम लेखिन्छ, जहाँ तिमीले गरेको कार्यको विवरण लेखिन्छ, त्यो सधैँभरि तिम्रो निम्ति बनेर बसिरहन्छ, अथवा इतिहासको पृष्ठमा तिम्रो नाम सधैँभरि सुरक्षित रहन्छ। त्यो लाखौँ समवेदना, शुभकामना, समवेदना, राशि राशि, लाखौँ लाखौँ मुटुका भावना। यहाँनिर कवि डाक्टर लक्ष्मीदेवी सुन्दासले त्यस्ता महान व्यक्ति, त्यस्ता महान वीर वीरङ्गना जसले देशको निम्ति आफ्नो प्राणको आहुति दिइरहेका छन्, त्यस्ता व्यक्तिहरूलाई शुभकामना दिएकी छन्, समवेदना व्यक्त गरेकी छन्, अनि राशि राशि, लाखौँ लाखौँ मुटुभित्रको भावना, ती श्रद्धाको भावना, त्यो सम्मानको भावना पनि व्यक्त गरेकी छन्। अनि हामीलाई पनि त्यस्ता वीर व्यक्तित्वहरूप्रति, वीर सैनिकहरूप्रति शुभेच्छा, शुभकामनाका भावना हामीले राख्नुपर्छ। मनभित्रबाट श्रद्धाको भावना राख्नुपर्छ। लाखौँ लाखौँ त्यो मुटुभित्रको भावना, श्रद्धाको भावना हामीले सँगालेर राख्नुपर्छ वीरहरूप्रति भन्ने भाव सन्देश यो कविताको माध्यमबाट दिएकी छन्। तिमी होमिदा युद्धवेदीमा प्रार्थना, ऋचा, वेदका ध्वनिहरू, यसैले तिम्रो त्याग, तिम्रो बलिदान नगण्य होइन, नचुक्ने होइन, गौरव देशको बन्दै आई, उत्सर्ग गर, उत्सर्ग गर। जति बेला तिमी युद्धभूमिमा लडिरहेको हुन्छौ, शत्रुसँग, शत्रुलाई पराजित गर्नको निम्ति, शत्रुलाई परास्त गर्नको निम्ति जति बेला तिमी युद्धभूमिमा लडिरहेका हुन्छौ, त्यो चाहिँ युद्ध वेदी चाहिँ एउटा हवन कुण्डमा हवन भइरहेको बेलामा, अथवा ठुलो यज्ञ भइरहेको बेलामा, जति बेला प्रार्थना भइरहेको हुन्छ, ऋचा भनेका ती वेदका मन्त्रहरू, वेदबाट निस्किने ती ध्वनिहरू, मन्त्रहरू उच्चारण भइरहेको हुन्छ, ती ध्वनिहरू चाहिँ तिमी युद्धभूमिमा लड्दाखेरि पनि कसै न कसैले तिम्रो निम्ति ती प्रार्थनाहरू गरिदिइरहेका हुन्छन्। अथवा युद्ध वेदीमा तिमी लड्नु भनेको यो देशको निम्ति, मातृभूमिको निम्ति लडेको हुन्छौ, मातृभूमिको निम्ति तिमीले युद्ध गरिरहेको हुन्छौ। मातृभूमिको निम्ति युद्ध गर्दा तिम्रो निम्ति प्रार्थना भइरहेको हुन्छ, वेदका ध्वनिहरू, ऋचाहरूको उच्चारण भइरहेको हुन्छ, मन्त्रहरू पाठ भइरहेको हुन्छ। यसैले तिमीले गरेको त्याग, तिम्रो बलिदान चाहिँ त्यो नाम नआउने, नचुक्ने होइन, त्यो नगण्य हुँदैन, त्यो गणना नहुने हुँदैन, यसको नचुक्ने हुँदैन। यो चाहिँ एउटा स्मरणीय बनिन्छ, प्रातः स्मरणीय रहन्छ, सधैँ वन्दनीय रहन्छ, सधैँ पूजनीय रहन्छ, इतिहासको पातामा सुरक्षित रहन्छ, एउटा इतिहास बनेर तिम्रो नाम रहिरहन्छ। यसैले गर्दा तिमी उत्सर्ग गर्न तत्पर बन, उत्सर्ग गर भनेर हरेक सिपाहीलाई, हरेक सैनिकहरूलाई कवि डाक्टर लक्ष्मीदेवी सुन्दासले आह्वान गरेकी छन्। र यो कविताबाट ती वीर योद्धाहरू जो देशको निम्ति सीमा सीमामा खटिरहेका छन्, आज पनि हामी देखिरहेका छौँ हाम्रो देशको विभिन्न सिमानाहरूमा, विभिन्न अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय सिमानाहरूमा हाम्रा सैनिकहरू आफ्नो प्राणको आहुति दिन तत्पर बनेर यो देश रक्षाको निम्ति, हाम्रो निम्ति, हाम्रो भूमिको निम्ति, हाम्रो मातृभूमिको निम्ति त्याग गरिरहेको हामी देख्छौँ, देखिरहेका छौँ आज पनि। त यस्ता वीर योद्धाहरूलाई प्रेरणाको खाँचो छ, प्रोत्साहनको खाँचो छ, हाम्रो श्रद्धाको खाँचो छ, सम्मानको खाँचो छ। यहाँनिर कवि लक्ष्मीदेवी सुन्दासले उत्सर्ग गर्न तत्पर बनेका ती वीर व्यक्तित्वहरूलाई सम्मान गर्नुपर्छ। हामीले सधैँ उत्सर्ग गर्न प्रेरित गर्नुपर्छ, प्रोत्साहित गर्नुपर्छ, इतिहास लेखिनुपर्छ, मूल्याङ्कन गरिनुपर्छ भन्ने कुरा जसरी व्यक्त गरेकी छन्, त्यसरी नै हामी सबैले ती वीर योद्धाहरूलाई सम्मान गर्न सकौँ, सम्मान गर्न सिकौँ, अनि उनीहरूको मूल्याङ्कन पनि हामीले गर्न सिकौँ। अनि ती इतिहासका पन्नाहरूमा जसरी वीरहरूको एउटा सुरक्षित इतिहास हुन्छ, भोलि लेखिन्छ, भावी पिँढीले आज कसैले नदेखे पनि भावी पिँढीले मूल्याङ्कन गर्छ भनेर डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासले भनेकी छन्। हामीले हाम्रा ती वीर योद्धाहरूलाई सम्मान गर्न सिकौँ, सधैँ स्मरण गर्न सिकौँ र उत्सर्ग शीर्षक कविताबाट हामी पनि हाम्रो देशको निम्ति एक कदम अघि आएर हामीले मेरो देश, मेरो राष्ट्र, मेरो समाज, मेरो मातृभूमि भन्ने भावना राखेर हामीले पनि हाम्रो देशको निम्ति केही न केही योगदान हामीले पुर्याउनु पर्छ भन्ने एउटा मिठो सन्देश, राम्रो सन्देश यो कविताको माध्यमबाट दिएको छ। र 10औं श्रेणीका विद्यार्थीहरूलाई म अत्यन्तै हार्दिकतासित आग्रह गर्न चाहन्छु कि यो कविताको माध्यमबाट डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासले जुन सन्देश दिनुभएको छ, जुन मेसेज दिनुभएको छ, यसलाई हामीले हृदयभित्रबाट मनन गरेर हामी पनि यो देशको रक्षाको निम्ति, यो देशको निम्ति, यो देशको एउटा असल नागरिक भएर काम गर्न सकौँ र यो देशलाई समुन्नत शान्ति र विकासको मार्गतर्फ अग्रसर गराउन सकौँ र ती सैनिकहरूले गरेको त्याग र बलिदानको सधैँ स्मरण गर्न सकौँ। र यो कवितालाई विद्यार्थीहरूले राम्रो पढेर यो कविताको सारांश लेख्ने, डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासको जन्म, डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासले लेखेका कृतिहरू, डाक्टर लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासले पाएको शिक्षा, आर्जन गरेको शिक्षा, यो माथि विद्यार्थीहरूले एउटा छोटकरीमा नोट बनाएर लेख्ने अघि मैले विद्यार्थीहरूलाई दिएको छु। अघिल्लो सेसनमा अहिले पनि मैले विद्यार्थीहरूलाई बताएको छु, विशेष गरेर जन्म, उनले पाएको विद्यावरिधि डिग्री, पढेको शिक्षा, उनले लेखेका कृतिहरू, यो चाहिँ हामीले जान्नु जरुरी छ। अनि यहाँबाट पनि अघिल्लो सेसनमा बताइए जस्तै यहाँबाट पनि जस्तो उदाहरणको निम्ति अवतरण दिएर प्रश्न सोधिएको हुन्छ, जस्तो तिमी होमिदा युद्ध वेदीमा प्रार्थना ऋचा वेदका ध्वनिहरू, यसैले तिम्रो त्याग, तिम्रो बलिदान नगण्य होइन, नचुक्ने होइन, गौरव देशको बन्दै आई, उत्सर्ग गर, उत्सर्ग गर। यहाँबाट जस्तो यो उदाहरण भयो, उक्त पङ्क्ति कहाँबाट निकालिएको हो अथवा उक्त अवतरण कहाँबाट निकालिएको हो, यसका कवि को हुन्, यहाँ युद्ध वेदी भन्नाले के बुझिन्छ, कहाँ युद्ध वेदी भनेर कुन युद्धको कुरा गरिएको छ अथवा कुन प्रसङ्गमा कवि लक्कीदेवी सुन्दासले यो कुरा उल्लेख गरेकी छन्, यस्तो खालको प्रश्न सोधिएको हुन्छ। यहाँ प्रार्थना ऋचा र वेदका ध्वनिहरू भनेर के भन्न चाहिएको छ, युद्ध वेदीमा के साँच्चै वेद मन्त्रहरू उच्चारण गरिन्छ अथवा गरिन्छ भनेदेखि कसरी गरिन्छ, यो एउटा प्रश्न सोधिएको हुन्छ। अथवा साङ्केतिक अर्थमा भनिएको हो भने प्रार्थना ऋचा र वेदका ध्वनिहरू भनेर कसरी ती युद्धभूमिमा खट्ने सैनिकहरूलाई प्रेरणा दिने चेष्टा गरिएको छ, यसरी प्रश्न सोधिएको हुन्छ। कसैले तिम्रो त्याग, तिम्रो बलिदान नगण्य होइन, यहाँ नगण्य भन्नाले के बुझिन्छ अनि कसको त्याग र बलिदान चाहिँ नगण्य होइन, नचुक्ने होइन भनेर भनिएको छ। अनि उत्सर्ग गर भनेर कसलाई उत्सर्ग गर्ने प्रेरणा कवियत्रीले दिएकी छन्, यस्तो प्रकारको प्रश्नहरू बोर्ड इक्जाममा सोधिएको हुन्छ र विद्यार्थीहरूले राम्रो प्रकारले प्रश्नहरू, अवतरणबाट सोधिएका प्रश्नहरू, पङ्क्तिबाट सोधिएको कवितांशबाट निकालिएका ती प्रश्नहरूको उत्तर घरमा राम्ररी तयारी गर्ने, लेख्ने, अध्ययन गर्ने म विद्यार्थीहरूलाई आग्रह गर्छु। र यो आज अन्तिम पाठ हामीले पढ्यौँ, यो पछाडि अब हामी अर्को सेसनमा विद्यार्थीहरूलाई कथाखण्डबाट हामी सुरु गर्नेछौँ र क्लास 9मा जति हामीले पढिसकेका छौँ बाँकी कथाहरू चाहिँ विद्यार्थीहरूलाई म छोटकरीमा कथाको सार, कथाको मूलभाव र कथाबाट पनि कसरी प्रश्न सोधिन्छ यसमाथि म अर्को सेसनदेखि व्याख्या गर्नेछु र उत्सर्ग शीर्षक कवितालाई राम्ररी ध्यानसँग पढेर प्रश्नपत्रहरू मार्फत सोधिएका प्रश्नहरूको उत्तर राम्ररी तयारी गर्ने आग्रह गर्दै म सबैलाई फेरि एकचोटि 2021 को निम्ति परीक्षाको तयारीमा रहेका विद्यार्थीहरूलाई घरमै बसेर भए पनि यो अनलाइन शिक्षाको फाइदा लिइदिने आग्रह गर्दै आजको क्लासलाई, आजको यो सेसनलाई यही अन्त गर्न चाहन्छु। धन्यवाद।